Hello my dear friends, and welcome to my channel. My name is Barbara, and today we're going to be going over Saturn in the 8th house Synastry. So this video is for you if you are experiencing this with another individual. Maybe your Saturn is in their 8th house, or maybe their Saturn is in your 8th house. Or if you're a cross watcher, welcome as well. So basically, Saturn in our natal charts deals with restriction. It is the energy of the career. It could be the parent energy as well. It's going to be the authoritative type of figure energy with Saturn. It's all about discipline. It's basically kind of how this earth plane operates. It's all about structure. It's all about public image even. And it's also karma with the Saturnian energy, and Saturn also deals with time as well. So that is what Saturn is all about. The 8th house in our natal charts deals with basically anything to do with sex, death, rebirth, joint finances, taxes, and the occult. It is the merging of energies. It can also potentially be the area in our natal charts where we have some shadows or some shadow work to do. It is the hidden part of the self. It could also be the area where we might feel the most vulnerable in. It depends. Here's the thing with all of these synastry videos. It depends what is going on in your own natal charts first. Maybe you guys are already used to the energy, so it could maybe not be affecting you as much. Let's say you guys are already an 8th house type of person, or maybe you're a Plutonian, or maybe you have a lot of Scorpio energy taking place in your chart. So maybe you guys are used to that energy. Maybe you guys have worked through a lot of these things. Maybe you guys are okay with being vulnerable and open and having these parts of yourselves exposed and brought to the surface. Maybe that is the case. If that is the case, well, in that case, you might be looking for these 8th house synastry types of dynamics to achieve the depths with another person as well. Because the thing is, you guys could be deep yourselves. You guys could be seeking that in another individual. So it depends. Maybe one or both of the people already are used to these types of energies. But what I find happens more often than not with these types of energies is that it could be the first time you guys are experiencing an 8th house synastry type of situation. A lot of things are coming to the surface for you. You guys might not understand what is going on, and now you guys have stumbled upon these videos to get a deeper look and understanding as to what is taking place between the two individuals. Now, this is really interesting with this synastry taking place. Like I mentioned, depends what's going on in the charts individually. Maybe you guys are already used to the energies, for example. Maybe there are other things that are taking place in the synastry between you guys where you might not necessarily feel this energy too much. So it really depends. You want to look at the bigger picture of everything. But generally with Saturn being such a restrictive planet going into the other person's 8th house, that house that is actually a water house, the place of vulnerability, intimacy, depths, and these types of things, well, maybe one or both of the parties might feel very restricted in this dynamic. For example, the 8th house person in the situation might feel like the Saturn person is kind of like their parent, or like this person is restricting them or not allowing them to fully express themselves in this area. Absolutely could be something like this that does take place. Now, the thing is, maybe there could be healing that takes place between these two people, where it's like maybe when you guys were younger, you already had this dynamic taking place with a parent, this restrictive type of situation. So it's like maybe it's familiar to you guys, and maybe you guys are clearing this with the other person. But the thing is, overall, when it comes to the depths of life and in general with the 8th house, Saturn isn't necessarily that type of emotionally intimate planet. It just is what it is. It's all about the hustle. It's all about getting the work done and getting the job done. So for example, in this dynamic, the 8th house person might feel restricted in the area of self-expression, expressing, let's say, their feelings, or even showing maybe their true self. They might fear, let's say, being vulnerable or fully expressing themselves in this way because of the restrictive nature of Saturn, or they might feel like they're not being received by the Saturn person, or they might feel like they are being dismissed, let's say, by the Saturn person. Now, another thing that can take place in this dynamic is that maybe the 8th house person could be trying to get the Saturn person to be a little bit deeper, for example, or to look at themselves in a different way. Or maybe the 8th house person could be bringing up certain shadow traits, maybe that the Saturn person doesn't necessarily feel comfortable expressing. It could be this because, again, it's that Saturnian energy. Saturn rules Capricorn, used to rule Aquarius. Once again, it's not the most emotional sign. So the Saturn person in the situation could feel very uncomfortable to look at themselves, to look at their shadow traits. I don't really see this dynamic, the Saturn in the 8th house, being something that is necessarily going to flow harmoniously, because the thing is, unless you guys have other aspects or synastry placements that are going to balance this energy out, it's going to be a lot of headbutting between the two individuals, because it's really an energy that kind of feels like they don't necessarily meet eye to eye. And the thing is also, in any sort of 8th house synastry situations, there's always going to be a breakdown of the ego and some sort of transformation in the situation. What I've been saying with these 8th house synastry types of videos, it could start with one of the people in the situation, and then maybe the other person is feeling a certain type of way. But the thing is, energy is energy at the end of the day. So it's like it could start with one of the people, and then maybe the other person is feeling it, or vice versa. But because the energy is present, amongst the two people, it could be kind of hard to read who is who in the situation or who is being transformed the most in the situation. But the thing is here, there's still going to be some form of transformation. I do feel like the Saturn person is really going to try to restrict the A house person in the situation in one way, shape, or form, try to pull the energy in, try to create some sort of, let's say, balance or discipline in their lives. Now, the thing is, let's say this is a business dynamic, like something that could be super platonic in this way. Well, it could potentially work because let's say the Saturn person is teaching the A house person all of these traits that I have mentioned to you guys, the discipline, the hard work, the effort, the perseverance. Yes, they could be, let's say, inspiring the A house person to be more disciplined in their life and to hone that energy back to themselves. For example, this could be something that takes place and it could work in this way. But in terms of, let's say, a romantic relationship energetically, there's a lot of friction here, I would say, and especially when it comes to the ego and these types of things. Like, once again, the A house person could feel like they're constantly being talked, let's say, down upon in the situation. Again, like they are the child and the Saturn person is the parent. Now, the thing is, like I mentioned, the Saturnian energy is always quote unquote karma. That's what Saturn does rule. So this would be a karmic dynamic. But the thing is, I find everything to be karmic in one way, shape, or form. Any sort of interaction that we have, whether it is the type of karma where we might not necessarily feel it as much, it could be just like a quick little interaction, or it's something that's intense and it's heavy. In this case, it could absolutely be intense and heavy because of the fact that, again, the A house also does deal with sexuality and sexual expression. And for example, the Saturn going in here, that could actually get restricted in this relationship as well. There could be a restriction on this, or there could be a restriction on, let's say, expressing the feelings and expressing the vulnerability from one or both of the parties. I can really see this dynamic turning into one of those dynamics where one or both of the people don't necessarily feel fully comfortable to get intimate, is basically what that is. And when I say intimate, I don't necessarily mean that in just the physical sense, because absolutely that could always take place with these A house synastry types of situations, because that energy is going to be present, but it might not necessarily be intimacy in the sense where it's like both people are able to fully express themselves and fully be their authentic and true selves, because that deals with a level of vulnerability that Saturn might not necessarily be comfortable with. Saturn is all about business and getting things done and discipline and hustle and career and public image even, and all of these things. So let's say even in this dynamic, there could be a lot of like, okay, like let's make sure we look a certain type of way for the public. For example, there could be this. Just like anything, at the end of the day, it depends how evolved are the two people, how much are they willing to work on this relationship, and again, are there other aspects that are going to balance this energy out? And let's say, are the people comfortable to start to get in tune with that part of themselves? Let's say, is Saturn comfortable enough to start to get in tune with their vulnerability? For example, in this particular situation, let's say they are individuals that maybe aren't A house individuals or Plutonians, or even people who have Scorpio energy in their charts that have explored those parts of themselves, because Saturn might not necessarily want to go into those depths, and then the A house person might not necessarily feel comfortable to show that part of themselves to the Saturn person. It's almost like there could be this element of fear in the situation, especially when you look at authoritative types of situations. When you have someone who is in a position of authority above you, there's always a little bit of fear connected to that person, where you can't fully be yourself maybe, or you can't fully express yourself, or you can't, let's say, be your true, unique, authentic self, which everybody is at the core. So that's kind of the energy here between these two individuals. I can see this manifesting again into, let's say, a business dynamic, or maybe even like a coworker dynamic, or maybe even like a manager and, let's say, an employee type of dynamic as well. I can absolutely see it manifesting in this way, but there's going to be a lot of power struggles, I will say, with this energy, because it kind of feels like the Saturnian energy wants to maintain its power in this situation in terms of the Saturn person being the authoritative figure in this dynamic. And it's like, as long as there's someone that is trying to be above the other person, you don't really have an equal partnership. For example, let's say it is a partnership or a friendship or something of this sort. If it is even, let's say, a manager and an employee, well, there could be a lot of power struggles, or there could be a lot of, let's say, asserting power, or even, let's say, asserting fear to try to control the other person. And then the other person could either consciously or unconsciously be playing into this to try to appease, let's say, to the Saturn person or the Saturn figure. So that's basically what it is. As long as both people are trying to, let's say, maintain their power or try to stay in their position, it might not necessarily work, this dynamic. One person might, let's say, succumb to the other person and, you know, do things their way. And the thing is, at the end of the day, again, is this a healthy relationship? This is just something to explore. If one person is, again, not being their true selves, not able to fully express themselves, kind of operating out of fear of the other person, what their reaction might be, and these types of things. So it's really interesting, this dynamic, especially as I'm feeling into it and I'm recording this video. To me, it feels very much like a lot of ego and a lot of power struggle, and a lot of one person not trying to give in to the other person and trying to maintain some level of authority and trying to be above the other person, where it's like, let's say, in a relationship where both people want to be equals, that might not necessarily necessarily work. So it could be this, there could be, let's say, the breakdown of the ego, although energetically when I'm tapping into it, just Saturn feels very much restrictive in this type of situation, very much stuck in their ways, very rigid. But let's say they were open to changing and transforming and transmuting this energy within, well, it could help them kind of loosen up a little bit in terms of their Saturnian nature, trying to maintain the power. But that's only if the person is willing to work on themselves. I do feel like in this dynamic, it's kind of like the 8th house person is going to be giving in a lot to the Saturn person. But the thing is, the 8th house does deal with power and control. So it could be, again, two egos that are butting heads, provided that there are not any other aspects in the synastry to soften up this dynamic. Now, one more thing that I will mention, because Saturn is a generational planet, and even the 8th house can deal with, let's say, certain karmas that are connected to the home and the upbringing. Once again, Saturn being the parent energy or feeling like the parent energy in this type of dynamic, maybe exhibiting certain traits that are similar to the upbringing, let's say, of the 8th house person. The energy might get interchanged between the two people, where it's like the roles could potentially be reversed, but just the way energetically it feels, it kind of feels like the Saturn person is really in that parent role. The Saturn going through the 8th house, well, in this situation, something that could be taking place is, let's say, certain family patterns or generational patterns, or maybe even addictions or things that were hidden. It could be coming up to the surface, either for one or both of the parties, because again, the energy could potentially be interchanged between the two individuals, but there could be, let's say, generational clearance here between the two individuals, anything to do with, again, their upbringing and that family dynamic. Whoever took on that authoritative role in your life could potentially be expressed through the Saturn person. But again, the energy could be interchangeable. But in this dynamic, because again, Saturn could be the parent, it could be coming from this individual, and then the 8th house person could be feeling it. But the thing is energy at the end of the day. So maybe one or both of the parties in the situation are going to be clearing through these generational things, or things that are buried deep within them. Once again, if they so choose to do so in these dynamics. It's all about the person's willingness to basically clear these energies within them at the end of the day. So with all that being said, I'm going to wrap up this video here on Saturn in the 8th house. I do hope you guys enjoyed this synastry video. If you did, please do like, share, and subscribe, and I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day.